A lot of the ways in which we speak about work in conventional organizations can often be less than ideal. There might be informal power plays. For example, we might try to make something happen by building political alliances across the organization, rather than trying to understand, okay, so where does this decision get made? We might draw on unspoken expectations, which can be quite confusing. For example, we might expect junior people to do things they haven't actually agreed to do, and subtly threaten them with negative consequences if they don't do those things. We might be really unclear about where authority lies and where decisions get made. For example, we might have a complex situation that our role is accountable for dealing with, but out of fear, we might shy away from the authority we have to make a decision on that, and talk instead to our colleagues about how an ambiguous we needs to make a decision on this. In a holacracy-powered self-organizing system, where we're moving towards dealing with explicit agreements rather than implicit expectations, where we're tying authority into roles rather than people, and where we're moving towards clarity about which roles have what authority, in this environment, we can use our speech to really shift to a healthier and clearer relationship to power and authority. There's so much depth to this topic, so I'm just going to give you 5 tips to get your thinking going. First, understand when you're speaking to others which roles you're speaking from and which roles you're speaking to. This is one of the most basic things you can do in self-organizing, and it'll make things so much clearer for everyone. Second, understand what authority does your role have in relation to the role you're speaking to. For example, if you're asking someone to prioritize something, are you simply making a request? Or does your role have the authority to issue an official prioritization, which the other role must align with? As another example, if you're saying, hey, can you please check with me before changing this document, is that simply a request? Or is it because you hold a domain over that document, and so there's an explicit agreement that people need to get your permission? If you want it to be an ongoing expectation that people check with you before changing the document, you'll want to get that explicitly put into governance. Third, understand, what are you seeking in an interaction? Are you simply looking to share information? Are you requesting someone to do something for you? Are you making a persuasive pitch for them to take a certain action? Let's take a scenario. Let's say you have a decision to make and you go to your circle lead about it. Are you seeking permission? And if so, do you actually need their permission? Sometimes we can often seek permission when actually we have the authority to make the decision, and what we actually need is someone's input to help us feel more confident in our decision. Remember, it's not your circle lead's job to sign off on decisions, but you can of course get input from them and from others as well. Fourth, if you expect someone to do something, check in with yourself. Is that based on explicit written expectations they've agreed to through governance or other means? Or is it based on implicit expectations that only you hold in your head? Last, if people ask you to do things that aren't in our explicit expectations, challenge yourself and say, no, I'm not going to do that. We can have a tendency to say yes to everything, or take on these expectations because the person who asked us to has a lot of social capital. But by holding boundaries on the creep of implicit expectations and really leaning on the written down explicit agreements, we can shift towards a culture of transparency. When expectations are transparent, then everyone can draw upon them. Everyone can know what they can expect of each other, and the organization becomes stronger for it. Again, this topic of communicating in a self-organizing system is a deep one, but hopefully that's got you started to think about how you can get clearer about how you're relating to authority.